welcome to another video here on the Critical Focus channel. First off, a big shout out to all my members who support my work and keeps the paint flowing and the electricity running. Members do get access to the member Discord, will influence the content, the matchups, whatnot. There is a join button below if you feel so inclined. But regardless, I am happy for your support in the form of actually just watching the video, of a like and a comment, and if you haven't already, please do feel free to subscribe as well. And if you are looking to buy Warhammer merch, there is an affiliate link in the video description as well. Let's get on with the video. So I just got back from the Copenhagen Grand Clash, and as suspected I had loads of fun. First I'll recap my visit, and then I'll break down my warband selection and deck selection, as well as having a look at an interesting top performing deck from the Clash. I decided to, rather than just make it a back and forth for the big event on Saturday, make it into an entire weekend experience, and I don't regret it. I drove fast from work on Friday, hopped on the train in Hässleholm in southern Sweden, and checked into my hostel on Västerbrogade. After a rather chilly evening walk from my hostel to Valby Kulturhus, I met up with Jonas, Thomas and the other fellows present for the Friday 3 games best of 1 Copenhagen Grand Legends Clash Nemesis sort of deal as a pre-tournament to the real Clash on Saturday. I brought out of hiding my Godsworn Hunt. I played Dan from Thunderworlds, my Danish namesake Mats, and finally the T.O. Thomas. I lost 2 games but managed to shut down Wrathgorn, or rather their Destruction War Scroll, with the pesky Brawler upgraded to deny their Inspire. Good fun, and how good looking of a warband is this Wrathgorn bunch in the theme of Bretonnian peasantry with a pet pig. We kicked down some beers during and after the games, rounded out with some pizza and called it a night. My night's sleep was not the best at the hostel, as a squad of policemen were searching with torchlight for something or someone at about 3:30 a.m. Well, eventually I managed to get back to sleep, and at 8:45 a.m. I took the old stroll back to Valby Kulturhus in the pleasant morning sun. 9:30 was check-in, and it was certainly nice to recognize some old faces, get some good lucks, and nice to see you in before the first round began. Check out the prize board, the custom-made trophies, etc. out. My first game was against a nice English-Danish bloke named John, with the Loon Court paired with Pillage and Plunder and Edge of the Knife. And for context's sake, if you haven't watched my video leading up to this recap, I am playing Iron Souls with Blazing Assault and Rack and Ruin. My game starts very tepid here, with very few successes and especially very few crits, so no early inspires for me, but I still managed to get a couple of easy kills in and a couple of cheesy objectives scored along with that to get the deck rolling, while he was dragging slightly behind but never really comfortably far behind. As the second round rolled around, I got the crits rolling and managed to inspire most of my guys and make good use of some plus dice cards, etc. to pick off key fighters like Grib, and I won quite comfortably in the end with 17-11. By the way, there was a glory difference cap in each game of 7, meaning, for example, if you would win 20-0, it would be registered as 20-13. None of my matches did indeed need to be adjusted in this way, however. My second game was against Grandfather's Gardeners in the hands of Sebastian, and I dreaded this matchup as the Gardeners are super tough, can soak up a ton of damage, and having crushed the meta pick of the day Sarbag in his previous game with 20 versus 15, they looked even more scary in his hands. Playing the Gardeners is a double-edged sword as an aggro warband. You want to kill stuff, but you really need to keep an eye on that wheel as well to not allow for the 3 damage counter to be a thing too much, and the heal is also sort of pesky. It was a cautious start for both of us, and for the 2 first rounds we kept toe-to-toe, but in the end my lower end phase ceiling couldn't really keep up with his passive scoring. I still really enjoyed the game, and I managed to squeeze 15 hard-earned glory from it without really doing much killing, and a fair bit of whiffs to boot. 22-15 in his favor. My third game was against a Czech player, John, who ended up actually finishing really high on the scoreboard with the bane of my existence across editions, the Thricefold Discord. I did get off to a great start here though, with taking out Vexmore halfway into the first round. From there though, the power of Laskivir was showcased to a T. I made a huge glaring misplay in the game, which might well have costed me the game, with an out of sequence improvised attack from him throwing me off in terms of knowing whose turn was coming up. I gave Keen Eye to Tavian, sizing up a killing blow from the once per game range 2 ability on Vashtis, and moved in my leader for support with the commanding stride, just to later realize it wasn't my turn, it was Jan's turn, which meant Laskivir instead could finish off Tavian, while also pinging my leader, who was now close enough, leaving her vulnerable, which really screwed me up. It all went sort of to shit from there, taking away nothing from Jan. He obviously made the most out of it, and not only in this game, but he played very well overall in the tournament. I was really starving for a win at this point. Oh well. On to the next one, where the Pole Philip was waiting with his vibrant Borgit's Beast Grabbers. I knew this would be a tightly fought game, as Borgit has more than a few good abilities on their War Scroll. This was my favorite game of the entire day, honestly. It went down to the very wire. Not much died in round 1, but I was deep in enemy territory with an injured baby troll pressed up to the wall, with Brodus breathing Sigmarite fumes down his rancid gullet. I managed to finish the troll off and most other things eventually, but also hilariously his Danglebro, the Gobo archer, picked off my leader for the UC3 bounties. In the end, only one storm cost and only the enemy leader was left alive, and in the end I opted to move away from Borgit rather than to boink him on his big gobo nose, and it saw me score stay close and clinch the win 18-16. 2-2 overall at this point. For game number 5 I got paired with another pole in Pavel. Super nice chaps, these poles by the way. Grimwatch awaited with the most popular pairing for today, Pillage and Cataclysm. I knew this would be a real challenge, and shutting down the leader and the resurgence would be key. It's also an especially troublesome matchup given how easy Grimwatch shuts down stay close with racing fighters in the edge hexes. And the sheer number of ghouls would also make my other 2 glory and face-off alone in the dark a bit tough. The key moment, or moments really, in this game were the big whiffs with my on paper very accurate attack against Crackmarrow, who kept rolling well on the double defense there as well. And with resurgence intact and just too many ghouls in the neighborhood to be able to shut down his UC end phases, I couldn't keep up. Still, 16 glory was somehow scored for me against his 22. Not great, but also no big glaring misplays for me, just an honorable loss really. Time for a beer and a reset. Next up was Thomas from England and the Thunderworlds team. Played Majoris Purifiers with Blazing Assault and Pillage and Plunder. This game sadly had a very similar development like the Discord game. I got it off to a great start with Eileen charging in but whiffed, and then I could subsequently finish her off. But after that I didn't really do much killing except for like the free kill Senela. Pretty much whiffed everything on the enemy leader, and Bahanar I mostly avoided, as poking him makes him angry and very scary. To add insult to injury, I made a glaring mistake here, just like in the Discord game as I hinted at before. Thomas was yet to score Strip the Realm in the third end phase, and I had been tidy all game to make sure always have a bloke or less on a treasure token, and I was standing next to one with a charge token after my last activation, and I played Wary Delver to make sure to be able to push on to that one before the end phase rolled around. Problem was I played it before his last activation, and he was able to move a great speed upgraded Majori onto that very token to deny me that push. Yeah, he realized my play a mile away and countered. This was super messy of me, and I was really annoyed at myself for not waiting till after his activation instead with playing it. So yeah, so a very costly mistake. Oh well, you live and learn. Only way to get rid of those silly mistakes is to get more mileage in a competitive environment. 2-4, and I was really starved for a win at this point. My last game was versus Thunderix Profiteers and Dane Jesper with a Pillage and Plunder and Rack and Ruin pairing. He started off by pinging Tavian with Iron Hail, setting himself up for an early hostile takeover with making 2 attacks without charging. Thunderix doesn't have a lot of big hitters that can really threaten the storm costs much. And so I decided to try and take out one of the very few ones that can right away. I charged right past Iron Hail with Wings of War on Brodus, and to salt the odds even more, I sank a Vicious Intent and used the once per game X amount of extra dice equal to the battle round to really make sure to kill him, and I pummeled Draxgear to a bloody pulp, earning myself 2 bounty and scored I think 1 or 2 searches to boot, and it was fairly smooth sailing from there on. I got pinged throughout the game, but I think I might have lost 1 fighter. We both had Alone in the Dark and Stay Close in our decks, of course, since we both played Rack and Ruin. And as I didn't have it in my starting hand, but it was pretty clear that he did, given how he sort of played, I shut them down, and I could then score mine later on instead, after he had discarded his. So yeah, I won 18-11 and a win to end the day on somewhat of a high at least. After my last game, it was time to kick back a few more beers. Before setting up the stream for the final table, we opted against commenting the match as my equipment needed us to be in the same room as the players. And yeah, we didn't want to disturb them, so I put the mics on the players instead and left them alone. Sadly, something went all wrong with the video for the stream, and the picture looked like total dog crap, but at least they had a really good lightning to play their final game in, so I hope they didn't suffer much from it anyway. So let's analyze my deck a bit. Branching Fate, no issues here with Pillage and Plunder, the most popular choices amongst my opponents. There were plenty of staggered fighters, and with a reroll inaccurate as well, and pretty much all fighters hitting for 3 dice, it was scored in every game without much trouble. Perfect Strike was actually from time to time a bit of a struggle to score. They almost have too much dice to score it. They are hitting on hammers, but when you roll 3 dice, it's not always scored, and it was somewhat of a brick in a few games. I still scored it more than I did it, so I would probably not remove it. Critical effort, always a bit of a fickle one, but most of the time not much of an issue with this one. I have so much dice, and sooner or later there will be crits. Get Stuck In, very solid. Only game I didn't score it was when I drew it late versus Majoris, and they were in my space, so yeah. Strong Start, I'm not crazy about this one. More than a few times I drew it just after I just had killed someone. It's a bit too swingy for sure. Last one, Bloody and Bruised, is not ideal. I kill a lot of stuff straight up, and oftentimes you sort of want to, and if you draw this late, it's nigh impossible if the board state is mostly a pool of blood with too few fighters left. It's pretty ideal for something like Thunderix, I guess, but maybe low on options in this pairing would have been a better pick for these guys. It's a bit of a brick early on, but it's way more reliable. For the end phases, Keep Chopping was always scored, Fields of Blood as well. Go All Out was a bit of a stretch at times, but scored more often than not. A dead card in 1 or 2 games maybe, which sort of is maybe bad enough for something so trivial and just 1 glory. Alone in the Dark, towards the end it's pretty hard to deny it, and it was scored fairly reliably, even versus the more hoardy warbands. Ploy Master, pretty easy 1 glory, which I think I always scored as well. Stay Close is pretty swing and a miss, and as one of only 2 glory end phases, this I think won't do. Sure, people will forget about it from time to time, but the sharp players really won't. Even if a lot of my glory comes from kills, if you are to outscore the sort of Pillage and Cataclysm meta, you need to score everything you have and kill most things. As for the ploys, I'm pretty happy with the most of it, but I could probably have done without healing potion probably. I don't think it ever healed me more than 1, and it was never really a lifesaver either. I think a control card would have served me better here, like Damned If You Do or Ominous Rumblings. As for the upgrades, I don't really regret my choices. I got good use out of all of them. I said in the pre-clash video that I chose this pairing over the objectively better aggro pairing with Blazing and Reckless, to take something a bit uncommon and more challenging, if you will, but in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have been ashamed over taking something a little bit better. The warband is good, and I definitely don't regret taking them. They are good fun, and even if their Inspire is very flimsy, they are hard, tough, and hit very well. Only issue is their speed, but it never really proved to be a great hurdle in my games, especially with how much push tech is in the deck as well. My biggest issue here is really the end phase game. With only two glory end phases and neither of them super reliable, stuff like Arena Mortis and Bloody Momentum and a sneaky Unrelenting Massacre as a 7th card is just way better. And Best Foot Forward and Frenzied Rush is also, I think, stronger searches than Bloody and Bruised and Strong Start. I would miss the double accuracy buff from having both Determined Effort and Vicious Intent to help my Inspire, but the added reliability and higher score ceiling paired with some useful tech in some stuff like Reckless Attitudes diving in would still have made more than enough up for that. That being said, I still scored decent in all games, especially considering the competition this year was a lot tougher with some really great players who had a lot of mileage from competitions and such. Let's now take a look at a very interesting deck from the event, and also a deck for Iron Soul Condemners. Dan from the Thunderworlds team with his Bretonnian-themed Condemners. He paired Blazing Assault and the Edge of the Knife in a very clever deck and made it very close to the top actually with his unique pairing. With no Tempered Fighters in the warband for starters, this really piqued my interest the most, and I think it did for a lot of people. A very interesting pairing for sure. Searches, Branching Fate, Critical Effort, Get Stuck In, nothing really to mention here. Aggressive Defender is a copy-paste from the Emberstone deck, and Double Team for attacking with support. Obviously more challenging for a 3-man unit, but still not a stretch, especially with Hidden Aid in the mix and a Mobbed as a card to really help out as well. The last one is Power in Numbers, which is at face value a very tough objective. 3 or more Tempered Fighters without move tokens needs to be adjacent. And this objective is a bit vague in its wording, I think. Adjacent to what one might wonder, but the rulebook helps us out here a bit. It says that when an ability requires a player to determine adjacency between 2 or more things, such as fighters, tokens or hexes, adjacencies cannot be determined from things not specified by that ability. So the thing that is specified here is unmoved tokened Tempered Fighters specifically. This seems pretty hard still, but given the heavy Gits meta right now, I guess in some games it's just scored basically at the start of a round. It's only move tokens only that is a hard no here. Charge tokens are fine, and no tokens are fine, of course. Still, it would be interesting to hear from Dan how consistently he scores this. He obviously values it above Strong Start, so that does say something. He's got 7 end phases with a very interesting selection of cards. Keep Shopping and Fields of Blood is not those, are not interesting. But next up we have Annihilation. Well, there's a shocker, right? I guess no one expects the Spanish Inquisition and no one expects Annihilation either. And when you don't expect it, you might not mind putting yourself at risk late game, because surely my opponent will not be playing Annihilation. That's a very ballsy pick, but I like it. All in is if you have no Tempered Friendly Fighters in your home turf, and at least a Tempered Friendly Fighter in no man's or enemy territory. So yep, 2 damage on one of your dudes or the Dark Horse upgrade is not a stretch. Calm Before the Storm is 2 glory for no damaged fighters being adjacent. Just make sure to not leave any bleeding Gits around, I guess. Kill them off or leave them alone. Against smaller teams it's even more solid, I guess. Risky Position is an easier version of All In. And lastly, Trial of the Tempered is another ballsy pick with every fighter being tempered. So versus Gits you need to more or less to put every 3 wound fighter out of their misery or leave them alive on 1 wound, while also having 2 damage on all of your own guys. It reads sort of like a 3rd end phase mostly, and I probably think that's where he usually scores it, but I don't know. I can see how it's a challenge versus something like the Gardeners with fighters healing up, but yeah, it would be very interesting to hear here as well how consistently he scores this one. For ploys we see the standard sort of array from the Blazing Assault, not much to say here, with Scream of Anger, of course here cleverly helping out the tempering, along with also I guess getting an extra charge in if you need it, or potentially shut down Relentless Massacre if you just want to remove a charge token if you are coming up against someone playing Reckless Fury. Death Throes is super solid with -2 dice as a lifesaver. very nice. Opportunity Strikes is a plus dice card, not much to say. While Spiteful Traps puts a move token on a fighter within 2 hexes of your leader. This can also shut off Relentless Massacre, by the way. As for upgrades, the standard array of accuracy buffs from the Blazing Assault allotment with Dark Horse as a crucial upgrade for tempering, and Mobbed is just so good, of course, and helps out the double team search as well, along with Hidden Aid. A very clever deck with some real high odds picks, and yeah, he obviously made it work very well. So let's look at some other stats from the clash. We had 38 players, 5 of them took Gits, no real surprise. I'm almost more surprised that there weren't more of them. No one of them below 15th place, and Gits also taking first and second place in the tournament. Pretty much all players here agreed that Gits are bonkers good, including the winners themselves, and that a nerf is surely incoming for them. The most popular deck was Countdown to Cataclysm, followed by Pillage and Plunder and Blazing Assault as the third option. The 3 of them leaving pretty much all other decks in the dust. And the most popular pairing was Countdown to Cataclysm and Pillage and Plunder, which is, yeah, no surprise really. The end phase game is so strong in that pairing, and indeed very hard to shut down. Paired also with some really nice, strong, passive, reliable searches. I personally don't fancy that playstyle much, but I don't hold anything against those who do. Looking at the 2 next most popular pairings, they also included Cataclysm, and indeed Wreckers, Spread Havoc and Set Explosives are so hard to shut down, if not near impossible, especially with Gits. Apart from the 5 Gits players, there was actually a really good spread of warbands, which hints to a fairly healthy warband meta, apart from Gits then. Grandfathers, Grimwatch and Discord are all definitely in a good spot here, but not really in a crazy sort of broken way. The event saw players from 70 different nations, with Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Poland, Czech Republic, Austria and England represented. And finally, let's take a look at the pictures of the most awesome warbands. Not necessarily solely a painting competition, which we all got to vote for, but rather based on a mix of originality, painting and the lots. The win was clutched by fellow Swede Olof with his awesome conversion for the tunnel pack, following another Swede actually with his fantastic Morgox conversion, and lastly Tristan's beautifully painted Gits, and yeah, Tristan was also the winner of the tournament. I had a hard time choosing between these very 3, but I ended up voting for the Orcs. Best sporting this year went to a very likable Czech guy, Stefan Varga, while Michael Kisley and Thomas Curtis clenched a joint victory in the Warhammer Underworlds quiz called Quiz Brains. After all the prizes had been handed out, we had a round of drinks down on the bottom floor pub, and some of us more than one round. And on fairly round feet, Jonas and I walked home to our hotels in the chilly Danish spring night, and that closes out my recap of the Copenhagen Grand Clash 2025. A big thanks to Jonas and Thomas, who yet again has organized a fantastic tournament. And the soft start with the Legends Clash on Friday night was a great addition this year, and I hope that it will be a reoccurring thing as well. We might have a bat trip with a couple of the tournament decks on the channel coming up, but we'll see. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.